and welcome to the Big Easy,
New Orleans, Louisiana.
Welcome to INLC on location here in New Orleans. I'm Scott Meeks.
And I'm Tracy Grau. We're here on Bourbon Street, which is definitely the hub of activity in the city, but music is all over. Here's John Rodgers to explain.
New Orleans is a city noted for being a veritable cornucopia of culture. Its food, drink, and music blend to form a jambalaya of good times. The Crescent City's nightlife is second to none in the United States. Musical groups such as the Neville Brothers, Funky Meters, Radiators, and Harry Connick Jr. have brought the international cultural spotlight here to New Orleans. What is it about New Orleans nightlife that makes it so unique?
The New Orleans music scene is a gumbo of sounds mixed up into a special blend. What's the recipe? It's a dash of blues, a little splash of Zydeco, and then top it all off with some ice-cold jazz.
To truly get the feel of New Orleans music, a visit to Tipitina's is a must. Local, national, and international recording artists perform year-round here. But as far as Tip's employee, Joe Cool, is concerned, you can't beat Tipitina's for good music.
I'll tell you what I've seen a lot of legendary. I thought I would never see Charles Brown, the man who made Please Come Home for Christmas. You know, you used to listen to that in the 50s. I've seen Charles Brown, I've seen Jerry Lee Lewis, I've seen Mick Jagger, I've seen Tyler Perry, Eric Clapton, I've seen Aaron Neville, I've seen Irma Thomas. I mean, people who I would never think that, you know, as a little kid listening to music that you would see come through here, and you standing there and looking and you patting them on the back, you know, saying, you know, they're saying, how you doing, Joe Cool?
From Joe Cool to hot R&B, Tipitina's employee, Roger Eunice, explains how no two nights at Tipitina's are quite the same.
It's funny because one show you'll see like a young crowd, the next is like a country crowd, and the next is like an older crowd. So it just changes all the time.
No trip to Tipitina's is complete until you get to see a performance by the legendary local performer, Miss Marva Wright. This has been John Rodgers reporting for INLC.
For most people, Bourbon Street is a place with a lot of drinking and a lot of partying.
But for some people, it's a way to earn a living.
If y'all enjoying the show and you wish to make a contribution, please don't feel bashful.
Just pocket change can buy you hours of entertainment, from a lone bass player to a big brass band. And even what the performers call living theater, you're welcome to watch and listen as long as you're willing to fill their buckets or hats. Abashi came from the Caribbean island of St. Kitts and travels around the country performing what he calls Rasta Yoga.
Yeah, it's a self-taught art. I've been practicing this for the past 24 years. I observe the animals. In my country, we have lots of wild animals, monkeys, deers.
Abashi uses his performance to spread his ideas on respect for the body and inner peace through spirituality.
Your body is what you would call your vehicle or your instrument. That's, I'm going to say, temple of the Most High or God, or whatever you want to call him. I call him Jehovah. And our duty actually is to take care of our body so that that higher consciousness, God, or whatever you want to call him, can dwell within each and every individual and manifest his work upon the face of the earth.
Other street performers are, well, a bit less active. But whatever the gimmick, each is fending for himself in the hopes of earning a living.
You know, it's just like you have a job 9 to 5. Sometimes I don't make nothing, and sometimes I make it.
Even young entrepreneurs can be found out working the street, playing it up with their eager eyes.
You know, traveling around and meeting different cultures, meeting different people, exchanging different ideas, you know, enlightening other people about themselves, the way they could take care of the body by eating right.
And speaking of eating,
New Orleans has a flavor all its own, and whether you're looking for the sugar or the spice, you're guaranteed to find it.
They take this stuff serious.
The way to start your day New Orleans style is to head to the French Market and grab a table at Café du Monde. Their specialty, the beignet, is a square-shaped donut, minus the hole and sprinkled with powdered sugar. But are beignets alone worth a trip to New Orleans?
We love them. That's why we come.
Beignets aren't the only sweet specialty you'll find. Pralines are a candy patty that some consider a New Orleans tradition. The essential ingredients are sugar, butter, water, and pecans. Depending on where you go, you can see the not-so behind-the-scenes making of the praline. While beignets and pralines represent the sweet side of New Orleans, there is also a very spicy side. There are 2 varieties of spicy, Creole and Cajun. We set out to find what made them different.
I would say the spices. It's a little different herbs they use to make the difference.
So what exactly makes Creole, Creole?
It's a base of like your tomato sauces and onion, bell pepper, green onion, stuff like that.
And what makes Cajun, Cajun?
They got what you call a Cajun spice that's mixed up with garlic, thyme, and cayenne pepper, salt, different things. It's a mixture of seasoning.
But if the Cajun and Creole isn't risque enough, how about a little alligator?
It's good meat, so they tell me.
Have you ever tried it?
No, I don't eat it. No, I just cook it.
John and Woody may not have cooked it, but they ate it.
Good.
What'd you think? What did it taste like?
If gator on a stick is a little too exotic for you, how about something a little more familiar? Pig.
We have one festival which is called the Boucherie, where everybody chases this pig, and once you get the pig, you slice the pig's neck in front of everyone, and then they take every single part of the pig. They have pickled pig's feet, they have pickled pig's tail, they have boudin where they use the intestines of the pig to make food from it, and everyone eats from there.
Make that almost everyone. This is Debbie Sheridan reporting for INLC in New Orleans.
Have you ever eaten these things?
Not that I'm in on camera, but...
just a few blocks off of Bourbon Street, we found the New Orleans Historic Voodoo Museum.
We were a little reluctant, but we decided to check it out.
People are very threatened by things they don't understand. There are powers in herbs, truly. And you really have to have a lot of faith and a lot of faith in God. Voodoo is, the word actually means spirit. It's a very earth-based religion. It's a very positive religion. Its roots are in ancient Africa. Goes back over 10,000 years. It's not about saying a prayer every now and again or going to church. It's about living a certain lifestyle, being good to the earth, helping your neighbor, really good things that are very, very close to the 10 Commandments and the Christian beliefs. You don't have to be a voodooist or a Catholic. When you're from New Orleans, you really can be both. I find a lot of peace and a lot of satisfaction from doing doing candle burning rituals. Each color is significant. You might want to burn a red one for love, green for money. Focus your energies into the candle because it is just a tool and it needs your creative visualization to help it work. The dolls are used, same dolls you see in Hollywood movies, but not in the same way. You might want to help someone to find love. You would use a red doll and you would put a white pin, not a black pin, in the heart of the doll. And that would be positive to bring love to you, not to give someone a heart attack or to make them have some kind of seizure. It would be to actually bring love into that person's life. Most of the tools are used for good things such as healing, productive things, positive things people want to bring into their lives, winning in court, money, getting a new job. This is what the tools are actually used for. Voodoo is it's based a lot on a balance, and you have a lot of ancestral worship going on. You're never born, you never die. It's a constant circle. You would not be here without your ancestors, and that your actions in this life will very, very closely affect your children. So everything that went before affects you now, and everything you do now affects what comes after. So because of that belief in ancestral worship and karma, you're not going to see a lot of people doing hexes or things that you see in the movies, because it would come right back on the person that did the hex. It's really about love, and the people that practice this religion are some of the best, most life-loving people I've ever met.
And stranger things were still to come. The Voodoo Museum offered historical tours of a different nature. So we decided to spend the rest of the day visiting the underside of New Orleans. There weren't any monuments or landmarks on this tour. Haunted houses and graveyards were the only sites on our agenda. So we put our faith in our trusty tour guide Alex and set out to see the real New Orleans.
For this.
Our first stop, a haunted house. And with every haunted house comes a ghost story. It seems that in the 1860s, a very wealthy widow became the victim of jewel thieves here. They killed her, and people say even today when the clock strikes midnight, her screams can be heard. And right across the street from this haunted house is a Catholic elementary school. Just perfect for little kids, don't you think?
A good friend of mine went here, and he told me he remembers back in 1st and 2nd grade, the nuns that run this would never allow the children to walk on that side of the street because of that house.
As we all walked away with one eye intently on the house and the other on our guide, Alex gave us a little bit of history. He explained that for blacks in the 1800s, the more African heritage you had, the less rights you had.
Mulattoes were half black and half white. Quadroons were a quarter black. Octoroons were an eighth black. Terms went all the way down to Mustafes, who were 1/32nd part black.
But there was one particular mix that was thought of differently than other black people.
The quadroon people were pretty much the middle class at the time, shopkeepers, craftsmen, things like that. Now, the quadroon women were what made their station important, because they were considered the most beautiful people in the entire city, and they'd often be kept as mistresses by rich plantation men.
The rich men would come here to what was known as the quadroon area, find a mistress, and sometimes even sign a contract with these women. The men would supply their mistresses with clothes and money and a home, and promise to educate any children that came from the affairs. The women's only promise was to be faithful. It was said that it was the relationships between the rich men and their mistresses that kept harmony between men and their wives in those days. Now, not all quadroons were mistresses. Perhaps the most famous quadroon in history didn't follow that pattern at all. She was Marie Laveau, the most famous voodoo priestess ever. Her home was located here in the quadroon area, of course, and Alex shared quite a few interesting stories about it.
There was a young man in prison accused of rape. The father of this man came to Marie to see if she could do anything about it. Well, she performed the appropriate rituals and decided this young man was really innocent. Now, she was so influential around here, everyone respected her powers. She pulled the right strings and got this young man off the hook. And the father was so grateful for payment, he gave her the home that was there.
Marie married 2 husbands and raised her 15 children there. She had 2 sets of triplets, 3 sets of twins, and 3 single births, all within an 8-year span. Many say her fertility rituals were very productive, to say the least. She lived in her home for 50 years, and people came from all over the world to see it, until one tragic day.
Now, her home is no longer standing there because it was torn down by accident in 1903. A demolition crew came around here to tear something else down. They get mixed up on the addresses. Oops, big mistake.
Even though Laveau's house is no longer there, voodoo people still like to live in this area because they say her power is still very strong. As you look along the street, there are signs of voodoo all around. Houses are painted blue and white, the colors of protection in voodoo, and other houses are painted bright colors with some type of voodoo significance. We left the Quadroon Quarter behind, but thoughts of Marie Laveau went with us. We went to Armstrong Park, named after Louis Armstrong, a very famous jazz cat. A park now stands near where his old neighborhood used to be. Now in this park is an auditorium, not just any old auditorium though, but this was the spot where the old prison used to be. And of course, the voodoo priestess herself spent some time here. Not behind bars though, but doing community service of sorts.
Marie Laveau used to come here to counsel prisoners on death row. She'd read their last rites, cook the last meals. She was known to give each person a big bottle of rum with their last meals. They could at least die happy.
Back in the 1800s, public executions were thought of as a form of entertainment. People would come for the day to watch prisoners get hanged. Marie Laveau didn't like that one bit, so she worked her magic at one particular execution that no one would soon forget.
There was a day in the summer of 1852. 2 men were on the gallows there about to be hanged for thieving and murder. As soon as the men stepped on the platform, a big thunderstorm rolled in. It got everyone kind of nervous because Marie just said she didn't like that sort of thing. When they pulled the levers, the trapdoors opened, both men fell through there, both ropes broke, neither man died. Everyone said Marie Laveau did that.
That was the last public execution ever to be held in New Orleans, thanks to Marie. The St. Louis Cemetery No. 1 is the oldest cemetery in New Orleans, being over 200 years old. And just like a scene out of a movie, as we entered the graveyard, dark clouds started to roll in overhead. Now, most of the graves here are above ground because the water table is so high. Much of the city is built over swampland. Alex says that in the early days, people were buried underground, but when the rains came and the bodies floated to the top, the churches figured that above-ground tombs would be a better way to go. No pun intended. Many of us couldn't help but notice that some of the tombs had been broken into. Alex said that grave robbing was not an uncommon incident even today, and says that people who practice voodoo are to blame for this.
It's usually the voodoo people coming for the bones, because bones are a big ingredient in many potions, and you might use the skull for ritual on your ancestor altar, something like that.
People who practice voodoo do not see anything wrong with taking the bones of other people, because it is the spirit that they feel is most important. As they rob a grave, they usually burn a candle to show some sort of respect for the spirit. During our time in the cemetery, we were told to respect the spirit as well, because we weren't exactly alone.
You would never badmouth his name because this spirit is still around. If he hears you and doesn't like what you're saying, he'll come back and haunt you.
Alex says that many years ago, it was more like the smell of the graveyard that would haunt people. New Orleans weather is very humid and sticky, so dead bodies that were not enclosed in airtight tombs would tend to emanate interesting odors. Even today, on really hot days, Alex says the graveyard is not where you would want to spend any time. As we toured the graveyard, we noticed that some of the tombs were marked with X's. Most of the tombs with X's were on that of voodoo priestesses or even some priests. X's were marked on tombstones by people asking for wishes and divine intervention. One line stands for clarity and the other for wisdom. Together they make the sign of the crossroads.
So when you mark an X on her tomb, for example, you're asking her spirit. But when you come to a crossroads in your own life, she will give you the wisdom and the clarity to go in the right direction.
Once your wish has come true, you complete the circle by putting a circle around the X to say thank you to the spirit. The most popular tomb to visit and ask for wishes at this graveyard is the tomb of none other than the #1 voodoo priestess. Even though Marie Laveau's body is no longer kept here in this tomb, her spirit is kept alive and well. People come from all over to leave offerings and make wishes right here on this tomb. If you want to make a wish, you must first do a voodoo ritual. First, you knock on her tomb 3 times, then kick it 3 times to get her attention. Then you mark an X, specifically with some type of organic substance like red clay or brick. Put your hand over the X and make your wish. Then you spin 3 times counterclockwise to scare away any of the spirits you don't want to hear your wish. You wrap the ritual up by leaving an offering, usually just a penny. But some people with very specific wishes leave all sorts of interesting offerings. As we started to do our rituals, the clouds decided to open up, so we took that as a cue to end our walking tour. We took one last look at all the different tombs, remembering that some had been there for hundreds of years. But as the thunder rolled on, so did we. This is Scott Meeks reporting for INLC in New Orleans.
It's hard to believe what goes on here unless you experience it yourself.
Here's a look at some of the sights and sounds that we've experienced here in New Orleans.
I can hear music somewhere out there, and I can hear a happy voice saying out in there. It makes me want to celebrate. I feel pretty sad, and I want to get outdoors. Yes, I do, in the open wide. A big time serenade. It must be a street parade, and I want a second line. Gonna have a good time, yeah. With every beat of the drum, I make you wanna get out with it, have a whole lot of fun. We gonna go dancing out in the street. Come on, baby, Lord, yeah, just you and me. A big time serenade. We're gonna do a street parade, and we gonna second line. We're gonna have a good time, time. Hit me. Hit me! Hit me! Yeah! Hit me, Saint. Ooh, yeah, you're right. Clap your hands, people. Let me hear them clap. Hey, people, clapping now. Let me hear them rap, yeah. Everybody, do your thing. Don't promise what tomorrow brings. So shake your tambourine like you do down in New Orleans. A big time serenade. We're going to a street parade, and we're gonna second line. We're gonna have a good time, time. Shake it till you can't do more. Everybody move your hips. Go on or let your back go slip. Give it everything you got. You got to move it by the groove. Everybody just live it up.
If you thought finding the seedy side of New Orleans would be hard, think again. As we hit the streets our first night there, the blatant sexuality was quite shocking. Not all of the clubs are for just drinking. There are clubs for women, clubs for men who think they're women, and clubs for women who don't act like women, and everything in between. Clubs can be a great place to find Mr. or Ms. Right, but there was some matchmaking happening on the streets as well. some were a little more aggressive than others. The reward for exposing your chosen body part? A lovely strand of plastic beads. But if you're not willing to go that far for a free souvenir, there are plenty of stores where you can pick up a reminder of the time you spent in New Orleans, but nothing you would want to bring home to Mom. Pure? Oh, really? After a few days in New Orleans, even the brightest halo can become a little tarnished. This is Debbie Sheridan reporting for Ion LC in New Orleans.
Take 1, 3, 2. From beignets to pralines. I forgot, I'm sorry. Ooh, hush puppy mix. But wait, Scott's gonna eat one of these. Yuck. Oh, yeah. Scott has a problem, okay? What were we watching this morning? He made us watch Barney this morning. In New Orleans, we were watching Barney this morning. We're a little worried about Scott, but hopefully he'll work it out this weekend. Thanks for the baby, Tracy. Oh, dear. Ready? Good evening, and welcome to New Orleans. That's all? Oh, God, here come the green-haired people. So sorry. But it's not all party and laughs for everyone. For some people, making a living... Shoot!
Three, two. Coming up next, we'll take a look at the Lynchburg.
Would you like to learn all about the Voodoo Queen of New Orleans? Make sure you watch this special edition of INLC this Thursday at 7:30. From the Mississippi River to Lynchburg, Mississippi River, isn't it? That's going to do it for this very special edition of INLC on location here in New Orleans. I'm Debbie Sheridan. I'm Tracy Brown. I'm Scott Meek.
And I'm John Rodgers. And as they say down here, c'est les bon temps roulés, let the good times roll, baby.